What's up guys, Mr. SLIN here with another video about competitive Team Fortress 2. Today I want to talk about a very interesting era in TF2's history, and that is the proliferation of the crossbow and the potential problems that the proliferation of the crossbow has brought. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with TF2 history, back in the Scream Fortress update of 2013, there was an update made to the crossbow. Prior to that update, when you shot a crossbow, you had to manually reload it with it in your hand. After October 2013, you could now reload it similarly to the Pyro's flare gun, where it reloads automatically even when holstered. So if you had another weapon out, it'll automatically reload, then you can pull it out and it'll have a shot in there again. They also made a second change in the Tough Break update in 2015, so about a year ago. They made an update there that makes it so that when you hit someone with the crossbow or hit a teammate, you gain Uber charge. So those are two very significant buffs to the crossbow that have been made in the last couple years that have really affected the way that Medic has been played at the high levels of the game and ultimately shaped the weapon choices that Medics have had moving forward. So I know I always poke fun at Array 7, but if you guys are the kinds of medics that are battle medics, that are really kind of playing the class counter to how it kind of should be played, then, you know, more power to you, go have fun. But like if you are playing medic as it should be played, you are really just a healing bot. You're just healing all the time. And you really have this primary weapon for either utility or, you know, maybe self-defense. But ever since the crossbow was introduced, you've kind of forgone that self-defense. You kind of just given that up. You don't need the self-defense anymore. You kind of accepted that if someone is in that close range for you to need a syringe gun to defend yourself, you're pretty much dead anyways. So most medics have said, screw it, I don't want to use a syringe gun now. I'm going to use a crossbow. And ever since the crossbow just keeps getting buffed harder and harder, it becomes pretty much the only weapon that medics will use at a high level. You basically don't see any medic like in the top anything like open level all the way up to invite, like if you're an TF2L, like from the lowest levels to the highest levels, even UGC players, no one is using anything but the crossbow in competitive play. And I see that as a huge problem because it kind of robs the diversity from medic and the options. I like it to have those options that you can choose different items and have different things available to you. But I can understand that the crossbow has actually been a very significant and positive addition to the competitive scene, because when you think about it, the crossbow is a skill shot, right? So you're rewarding medics for hitting potentially a very difficult shot on a teammate, giving them not only a boost of health, but also some Uber charge percentage back to you. So you're not really losing time if you're not healing, if you're hitting sick crossbow shots. In fact, you can actually build Uber faster than traditional methods of just healing. You can build faster just by shooting crossbow shots. If you can build in like 20 seconds now, whereas if you use a metagun, it can take you upwards of 40 seconds. So half the time, you can build Uber in half the time if you use just the crossbow. It's a really, really strong weapon, and perhaps probably too strong. So I kind of want to, again, take your attention away from TF2 towards Overwatch. And I know a lot of you guys don't like comparing to Overwatch, but I do feel like something that Overwatch did really, really well was that they made the weapons very approachable to a wider audience. And so, for example, they took a very complicated mechanic like the soldier's rocket jump, and they said, screw that, it's going to take you 100, 200, 500 hours to learn how to rocket jump properly. Let's just give Pharah a button. You push the button and suddenly you're in the air, right? They just made it super, super easy. And something they did with the crossbow mechanic in Overwatch that they did was really well with Ana was that they made it way more forgiving, because right now with the crossbow and for the medic in TF2, if you miss your shot, it's going to be like a couple seconds, like 2, 3, maybe 4 seconds for you to reload that shot and then take a second shot. Whereas with Ana, you're just taking back-to-back shots, like bam, 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 bam. And that's way more forgiving. Not only are you allowed to miss effectively, but you can just you can hit more shots there. And each shot is not as effective as a single crossbow, but you can take way more shots in a very rapid succession. And I think that's a lot more forgiving a mechanic. And that's something that Overwatch has done really well, is that it's made these mechanics a lot easier to approach for newer players, so that newer players don't feel as intimidated to pick up and play that. Whereas if you're a new medic player, you might actually be a little bit intimidated to use the crossbow, because you might think, my aim's not so good right now, I'm probably missing a lot with the crossbow. It's better to use the syringe gun. The syringe gun has 40 shots in it, so I can miss like 30% of my shots and I can still hit like a good number of syringe shots into the enemy person. I feel like that's what some medics are thinking, but for competitive players, for the higher level players, they have a good grasp of how to aim. And even if they are missing like 50% of their crossbow shots, it's still worth it to take the crossbow because it's so damn good right now. Like the crossbow is so powerful right now. It does damage to enemies, and you can just fire it into a choke point, and even if you miss your intended target, you'll probably hit something else. So it's just really strong right now. And I just feel like Valve has to make a decision here moving forward. Like, there shouldn't be a weapon that is so good that you absolutely have to take it compared to anything else. Like, when you look at TF2's weapon diversity, there's so many options there. What's the point of having like 30 options if there's only one real option? And that's how I feel about the crossbow right now. That's how I feel about this whole crossbow situation, is that there's like many different medic primary options, but there's really only one. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you could take the overdose, but nah, you really should be taking the crossbow. In fact, you have to take the crossbow because it's so good. And I think the developers of the game and maybe the community, we should have this discussion together and talk about what we want the direction of the game to go in, right? Because if we want the game to be intensely skill-based, to be a very difficult game, I think that will create problems for TF2 for the future. So for example, let's say every single weapon that you chose was a skill shot. Like, a lot of you guys out there might have this attitude, like, hey, the crossbow is actually really good for the competitive scene. Don't you understand that it rewards medic for skilled gameplay? Like, isn't that a good thing for competitive players? Don't you want the game to be harder to see? Like, if you are hitting these shots, you should be rewarded for that. And I might disagree with you, because I think that when you look at how esports have been progressing over time, the most difficult esports are not really the most popular esports out there. In fact, you look at Quake right now, which is a very difficult game, and that game has been on the downhill recently because it's just too difficult. It's too hard to pick up and play for the average new player who wants that sort of instant gratification, who wants to be able to instantly be winning. And other games like StarCraft that are just very mechanically challenging are just seeing decreases in the number of players that they have because it's just too hard. And so if you create a situation in TF2, which is supposed to be a casual version of Quake, right? TF2 is supposed to be a casual shooter. If you add all these skill-based mechanics to the game that make it difficult to pick up and play, that's going to hurt the casual scene. It's going to hurt the competitive scene as well, because there's going to be less players in the competitive scene as a result of that. So I really do feel like Valve has to make a decision, like, do we really want to be buffing the crossbow so hard right now? I'm of the opinion that we shouldn't be. That the crossbow needs to have some sort of downside to it other than just missing. I think missing is always going to be a downside no matter what weapon you use, except for, although for medic, it does feel like it's pretty hard to miss with the meta gun, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like, yes, it is difficult to hit a crossbow shot a lot of the time, especially if your teammates are moving or if you're up against an enemy. If the enemy's dodging around, it's very difficult to hit that crossbow shot. And also, if you miss the shot, it's very punishing. So I do feel like it's balanced in that sense, but I also feel like it shouldn't be that much better than everything else available. I think that either the crossbow needs to get nerfed or you need to bring the other medic prime weapons up to match that for medic. I think that just like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like Valve is looking at the player numbers. Maybe they're looking at the statistics, and the percentage of medic players that are playing in casual gameplay are not really using the crossbow. Maybe the majority of casual players are choosing to use the syringe gun instead because it's more forgiving, or maybe they're using the overdose for the utility of the movement speed, and maybe they don't feel confident in their crossbow shots. But it really has taken a toll on the competitive scene because it's just too strong right now. It's just way too strong. It made medic, which is a class that is already essential to your team composition, just that much more powerful, just that much more needed, because the burst healing you get from the crossbow is life-saving. It's game-changing. It's team. It can literally change the direction of a team fight. If your team is focusing a person and really trying to kill that guy, and he gets crossbowed from across the map and instantly is full health again, you just dumped all your ammo into a single person who just is a full health. It's just like nothing ever happened to him. I think that's just way too strong. And nothing else in the medic's toolkit for primary weapons is going to give you that same utility. It's just very strong. If I were Valve, again, I would look to... I don't even know what I could do to the syringe gun that would make it better. Like, they've already done everything they could. Like, the Bloodsucker, it's a terrible option because it reduces your passive healing. So that's not even an option to use the Bloodsucker at all. Overdose is probably the next best weapon after the crossbow because The self-defense isn't really needed, as I mentioned before, so you're probably going to just whip it out and get the added movement speed that you need to make faster rotations. So that's probably your second best option. Third best option, probably the syringe gun. But I really feel like the medic should, one, be designed to use the metagun more often. Like, it really should be a class that revolves around using the metagun as much as possible. So in a situation where the crossbow is even more powerful than the metagun, which is really the medic's primary weapon, and that's just ridiculous. Now the medic has two primary weapons, right? So I just feel like that's not cool. And I think the other options are not cool either for the medic for primaries. And yeah, I think it takes the game in a direction that becomes more skill-based. And having a more skill-based game, while it seems good for competition, I think is actually going to hurt the game in the long run. I think that's why the reason why classes like the Heavy and Pyro exist, not to hate on those two classes, but like it's really, really easy to play Pyro. Like you have a really wide area to aim in. And same with the Spy. Like the Spy has a very wide area to aim in to get that backstab kill. I think those are the kind of mechanics that you need in the game to make it more approachable for players. Whereas like mechanics that are too hard, like Sniper's Headshot or the Crossbow even, can just be like really daunting for new players. And I think that it was a really good decision for Valve to add things like the Huntsman, for example, which kind of just lets people play Sniper even if you don't know how to aim. Those kinds of things should be added to the game. And you should nerf things that are, one, just like really overpowered, and also to maybe encourage the game to be a little bit too skill-based. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to know what you guys think about the crossbow. This change has been around for like 3 years. So at this point, everyone in the competitive scene is kind of just used to it and kind of just accepts the crossbow as a normal part of reality. But it shouldn't be. I really don't think it should be. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you next time.